And our breath is the bridge between the physical body and our spirit. So it's like once you build that bridge, once you build that, bridge with where I found conscious connected breathing or, different breathing techniques, after a while that happens, people do start connecting with their essence without even knowing what it is. I am certain that if someone is taking their first step to spirituality, if you want to connect with your soul, your essence, breathing, first understanding breathing and first connecting with your breathing is the most powerful and most effective tool.
Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Success Series. I'm here with our special guest Nevşah, all the way from London, and she has a wonderful background mixed with science and spirituality. She's a world-renowned behavioral scientist, as well as a spiritual guru, influencer, and even has her own breathwork app, Breath Up. We'll get into all of that and so much more. Nevşah, thank you for being here with us today. If you can just give our listeners a little background on how you got to where you are today, where you started, and we'll jump right in.
Sure, yeah. Thanks for having me here. Lovely to be here. Yeah, I was born in Turkey, Izmir, the west coast of Turkey, which is more modernized than compared to the east coast. So I grew up in an international community, I think, which gave me the privilege to be thinking in a more open way than the overall society who's living in Turkey right now. And I grew up in the way I was born, I think, is very important for my spiritual journey and how my birth and my journey with life started. I learned, of course, afterwards that my dad had an accident and he crashed a big truck before I was born, and his face was ripped off fully when they were married with my mom for 6 or 7 months, just recent marriage. And my dad is a handsome guy and my mom a beautiful lady. Just imagine, 24 years old. They just married 7 months afterwards. His face ripped off and he was in the hospital. They had a very challenging time because they didn't know even if he would ever have a face.
Wow.
And aesthetics were not like they were today. And it was kind of very, very, as they tell, it was a very painful situation because they were trying to, help him to have a face, but then it didn't work out. So he was having surgery after surgery. And my mom used to tell me, like, they had to keep his arms locked to the bed he was lying down, like, because the doctors didn't want him to see a mirror or go in front of even the window anywhere he would see his face, because they were certain that he would commit suicide. So it was that bad. And my mother tells stories like whenever they were changing his the things, the pads on his face, he would look at my mom in the eye, trying to see what he looks like, trying to see any pain. So to cut it short, I am so how I was conceived is during the time when my dad didn't have a face and he was in the hospital and they were both in pain, and then I was conceived in the hospital.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like this extra painful, dark period when I was conceived. In my world, resulted as being born inside the darkness and being certain or having thoughts. I remember when I go back to my childhood, I remember telling myself, like, because there is no light, everybody is in darkness and all this pain and like chaos in the house. I remember truly, like, intuitively telling to myself, you need to be the light. You don't have an option. You either be the light or you die. So it's kind of like, I think my deep spiritual connection comes from, those times. And then the story goes, I would see old woman with curly hair, tall old woman in my room when I was one and a half years old. So when I was little, I remember being in the room with someone the whole time. And the first time I was able to speak and tell it to my mom, they freaked out. And then they carried me to they say, I don't remember, but I was carried to a, psychologist and then psychiatrist, and I used heavy psychiatric drugs the first couple of years, starting from, I think, 2 years till 3 or 4. And I was so numb, probably. I don't remember seeing that lady in the room, which then, after many years after that, in my early 20s, when I started deep meditation, when I started classic Vedic meditation and breath work, and when my spiritual journey and going within, started, I started seeing the lady again. And as my journey developed and as it evolved, as I got deeper and deeper into classic Vedic meditation and breath work and connected with my soul, my purpose, who I am, I started having that presence of that lady with me. And then we started, it's not like a live thing, but I started connecting with that presence, spiritual practice, with the spiritual practice. And I realized that that lady was the older version of me. And then we had this amazing communication, spiritual communication, where she, which is me, like I, with myself, had a conversation, told myself that because I was not empowered enough when I was a baby and a child, with the connection I had with the divine, it had to be protected in some way. And my older self didn't rely on anything but herself, which is my experience with the world today. And she had to be there. And now I'm kind of like at a stage where I'm in my life, I'm turning 50 this year, like half of my life, wiser and, evolved in many levels. Now I'm kind of like realizing in the realization that I am able to live life beyond time and space, and in a consciousness level where there is no time, there is no space. So it is very easy for me to connect with, my childhood, teenage years, because there is no space and time. It's kind of like I'm experiencing all stages of my life, future and past, in this very moment. So that's where I am in my journey, my spiritual journey. And if you ask me how this whole thing, led to, so what it's doing to my mission and purpose and everything. So with that, story, and with me having a deep connection with myself and with the divine and with what is, I had many problems in my childhood where I basically didn't fit in. Like, in a way, I was usually connected with another version of, another perception, which was love, and everything was okay for me. And I was living in such an environment, such a country, Middle Eastern, and this is like 50 years ago, like 45 years ago. People have still, in Turkey, people have a lot of conditioning and biases and a lot of social conditioning, religious conditioning about how things should be, and you should do this, you should do that. If you don't do that, that's evil. And if you don't do this, that's bad. And so in that conditioning, I'm this little child who doesn't have that much of a conditioning. And I remember throughout my whole teenage years, I was like, I just don't think the way they do. It's like, I don't know why they can't just see that it's all okay. It's just perfect. It's just love. Everything is love. Why can't they see it? So I would just question myself. I would feel as I would be an outsider. So there were a period of my life until I started meditation, and until I started breath work and dive deeper into human behavior and thinking habits and breathing habits and all that. I couldn't find the answer to my questions. Just basically, why am I like this, and why people are like that? Like, why is there this much of a judgment and conditioning in this world? And why don't I have that much. So where do I belong and what am I going to do with this? And then as I deepened my spiritual journey, I knew why I was not able to, condition myself that much, and why I was connected with spirit more than other people, because I had this mission to fulfill and purpose, which was first in my early 20s, which was tough and painful because I couldn't speak out loud, I couldn't talk about it, I couldn't tell it to people. And my journey, my business journey, has been building a community and helping humans get to the next level of their humanity, or helping humans transform their conditioning and transform their judgments and biases, so that first of all they can understand how I see things, or how I weave things, or not having a perception, or they can connect with what is, just like me. So I'm kind of like in the need to build a community of friends, because unless I do this, I'm left alone.
Right. So you're in your
So
own
it's
world.
kind of like I need people to
Right.
transform so that I can have some friends.
Right.
On the personal level, and on the universal level, I just love helping people and getting people to a more unconditional mind state where they can connect with, God, divine, whatever they call, but basically the perfection of the universe, the perfection of the divine, because in truth, the divine is perfect. We just have other ideas about it. We just have too much judgments about it, but it's what is just perfect. It's beautiful. It's magnificent. And my life has been, so I'm on a purpose of getting people into seeing the magnificence of what is, the
Beautiful.
magnificence and the beauty of the divine.
There's so much to unpack in that beautiful story that got you here today. Going back to the early days, as you mentioned, was with your father and your mother, did that relationship from you to them and then between themselves evolve? Was there a light at the end of the tunnel, just out of curiosity?
I mean, yes and no. If you ask them this question, they would say everything started changing after you were born. And my mom, usually after I started my work as a self-mastery teacher, my mom said, like, I knew like you would do something like this, because just being around me, just being around you transformed our lives. So it's like she's very well aware that after the day I was born, things started shifting. So it's kind of like, it's not just a story, but in reality, I have been hearing this from family members, my sister, my friends. So I have had friends, my childhood friends, come to my seminars, and my students who met me recently in the last couple of years, for example, asking them questions like, how was Nevşah when she was a child or when she was a teenager, and did she change a lot, and what do you think about the things she's teaching? And they would give those people the answer like, she was talking about the same thing since she was a child. Like, she's been talking about these stuff forever. You just, didn't hear about it because you weren't her friend. Because we were friends, we had to cope with her.
Right. We didn't have a choice, right? That's what they were saying.
You are paying for this thing,
Exactly.
So it's like my mom's and my dad's experiences. I mean, how they tell it is, when I'm around, it's like there is this. It's not only in a good way, but it's also in a painful way. This full awareness just shining onto them, which is just transforming everything. So I've seen my mom in deep pain and crying. And my experience with them was, for example, my grandmother died when I was 13, and I dearly loved her, and we had a deep, deep spiritual connection. And I remember the day she died and the funeral, and afterwards, my mom was in pain and crying, other people crying. And I remember not being able to cry because I was feeling her presence in the room. And I was just questioning, why are they in so much pain? Like, can't they feel her? Like, she's here. Like, why are you, making a big fuss of it? And that's the level I couldn't speak about, and that gave me the pain. So that was
Right.
my pain. It's like I just didn't understand why the whole fuss was about, and I remember trying to make myself cry. I remember going to the toilet and bathroom and, trying to make myself cry and judging myself for not being able to cry and not being able to connect with loss.
Right.
But then, lucky enough, I met amazing teachers like Dr. John DeMartini and, many teachers around the world who were teaching what philosophers were teaching around the world for centuries, and telling things like masters live in a world of transformation and masses live in the illusion of gain and loss. So I had teachers that helped me understand who I am. A Course in Miracles, for example, helped me understand like what that was, and that connection. It's kind of like whoever has that deeper connection, or whoever can get to a level of deep spiritual connection, I think can understand that there is no gain, there is no loss in the world, and everything is just transforming. And whoever we came across with, we're already in their presence, connecting in their presence. So it's like many years ago, my idea about myself was I was a weird person.
Right.
Now my idea about myself changed to
Everybody
years
else
of
is weird, right?
work. Yeah, and I'm like, I'm not. I'm like, I was just the way I was, and this
Right.
was kind of like my pain point, but also a gift.
Right. And I'm very familiar with the Middle East culture. My mom's from Iran, so I know growing up in that household what it's like, especially as a woman, right? It's very strict. There's ways that you should and shouldn't be. How did you overcome that, right? Being from Turkey and living in that Middle Eastern culture, how did you grow beyond that?
Great question. I didn't. I overcome it by not overcoming it. So, yeah, I mean, the first thing I would say, it's like if you are like me, if you are a free soul born in those circumstances, the only thing you can rely on is not showing yourself. It's just hiding who you are. So it's like everything, like my life was around acting and lying. So I was lying about how I felt. I was lying about my truth, who I was, that like what I sincerely thought. And I would act like, to kind of like to find a place in society, I would act like I had that, not had, but I understood those judgments, which I had no idea, no clue. But I would act like, and somebody would judge something and, bad and evil. And I was like, But inside I was like, I don't understand. I don't have a clue about what you're saying. So I adopted by hiding myself, which actually ended at a very painful way, because in my early 20s, because I was hiding myself so much, and with that behavioral, it became a behavior, and a conscious behavior first, and then an unconscious behavior. I kind of like built this wall around me, because if you keep on hiding yourself, if you don't express yourself, your truth, you already know that you kind of like shut down. So everything was around shutting down, and it was a conscious decision, because I kind of like knew if I didn't close up and shut down, I would not be able to survive. It was like conscious, It's like I need to hide, and I just can't say the truth. I can't say what I see. And so what happened in the end is, in my early 20s, I remember like my life was in my like inner being, the connection with myself and with truth was something else, and my daily experiences was something. It was kind of like this gap between my life, relations, relationships, my experience in life, and who I was in my meditation practice, or who I was when I was with myself. And then at one point, that gap got so big, like that wall was so thick. And, I had this light and connection in me, but due to that thick wall, I wasn't expressing it and showing it to anyone. So
Wow.
I started experiencing darkness day after day in my life. Like it got darker and darker and darker. At one point, I was like, I'm not gonna be able to live my life like this
Hmm.
anymore. And I was even thinking about committing suicide
Wow.
because it was so meaningless. And like, because it's like our why, and this is the kind of like the basis of what I'm teaching today. Our why, our purpose, who we are in our essence, is also the meaning of our life. So if you can't express your purpose and your essence, your life becomes less and less meaningful. So that's exactly what happened to me. So the more I did hide that light, my essence, the more I didn't speak my truth, my essence, the thicker the wall got. I was kind of like depressed and just stuck. And yeah, I was just certain I just can't continue like this.
Wow. How long did that period last for? And then what was the
Mm,
turning point?
Around, I mean, it's kind of like, it's not a period, but it kept on becoming worse and
Mm.
worse. So it's not kind of like a period. I would say, it kept on, I kept on building that wall around me since I was a child. Maybe it
Right.
started with me telling my mom, I was connected with somebody's presence and she freaking out and me going to a
Wow.
psychiatrist. I don't know, but it got worse and worse. And the one thing that started changing everything was me getting pregnant. It's just amazing. It's like, because, and that's also part of what I'm teaching today to women, because for a woman's body to co-create a baby, you have to have a deeper connection with the creator, with the creation energy. It's like your body
Right.
is co-create, like your body is getting filled up with that creative energy, which is God, the divine, the creator, so that it can create a baby. My body doesn't just create a baby. It's like I can't
Right.
just close my eyes and say, hey, let's create a
I
no.
want a baby.
It's
Right.
like, yeah, it's like the time comes, the perfect timing, and then there is this magnet energy, and then it's kind of like a magnet. The womb magnetizes that creative energy. And everything shifted as I got pregnant to my first child. I was meditating and things were shifting. I was doing breath work, but it wasn't enough. But when I got pregnant, like I literally started cracking open. And
Wow.
I just couldn't stop that energy because that creative energy was filling me in. And I remember, so my spiritual journey got deeper after I got pregnant, and I had an amazing 9 months and 15 days around of deep connection with myself, divine, you know, which ended after I gave birth, and I was back to my old self, which was even more depressive.
Wow. It was a
It
roller
was kind
coaster.
of this, well, once when you said, yeah, actually I got it, but then the baby is
Right.
born and it's
It
like
all goes away.
it was like gone, and I was like even more stuck, but I was left with a baby and I had to,
Right.
continue my life, and it was even a more painful, couple of months where I got my first conscious connected breathing session from a Dutch breathwork facilitator, which just changed everything because he analyzed my breathing habit and saw that I was breathing very, very shallow. I think to hide myself, I was breathing shallow.
Right.
And in that session, he led me to deep breathing. And when the deeper I, did breathe, I remember that wall, that stone just cracking open,
Wow.
like the photos you see and the pictures you see on Instagram right now, where
Right.
people cracking the wall, and that happened in a 1.5 hour breathwork session. And I just cracked open. It was a horrible session because I was, throwing up, and I had tetany in my hands.
Wow.
World was turning, like physically it was painful, but I just didn't want to stop because I was like fully connected again with myself, experiencing that creative energy. I was like, yeah, this is what I want. Yeah, that's what I want. And everything shifted after that session. I was fully connected with my mission, my purpose. I was clear. And yeah, after that, I left the city I was born. I decided to divorce.
Shortly
I
after, or
decided
what? How much
to
time was between that experience and then?
probably 6 months.
Okay. Wow. Very quick.
Everything changed. Yeah, 6 months. It's like my community where I was, and like everything started moving fast because I opened up, like cracked open in that breathwork session.
Right.
And in that session, I knew, like I was certain that I saw visions of myself in front of people, helping hundreds of thousands of people experience that connection. So I saw vision after vision in that session. And when I got up, I was clear on my mission, my purpose, who I was. And I remember telling myself, from this day on, I'm never ever going to allow anyone or anything stop me from expressing who I am and my mission and purpose in this lifetime. So it was
Wow.
like this clear decision of, I'm not letting anyone, and I'm gonna do everything I can, to fulfill this purpose, to fulfill this mission. Yeah, and until now, I've been doing that.
It's incredible.
I did not let anyone to stop me.
It's incredible. There's so many parts to that I want to unpack, but just on that last point alone, we all have people's voices coming in, and this person thinks that. In speech, it sounds easy. I'll just push it away. But as we all know, when it comes into your life, it's not that easy. So are there any things that you physically did that made it easier for you to get those voices away when people judged you? Like, how do you naturally overcome that?
I think in that breathwork session, I did overcome it, because if you have a good facilitator, breathwork facilitator, who knows what she's doing or he's doing, who leads you into, and that's why I started, studying breathing sciences, dysfunctional breathing habits, and behavioral, aligning behavioral sciences with breathing as well. Because if you have a advanced facilitator who knows what they're doing, who can analyze your breathing habits on a very deeper level, and who can lead you into doing what you haven't done your whole life, because breathing is behavioral, and people learn breathing behaviors. And for example, like me, if you're a shallow breather, I did breathe shallow for over 24 years of my life. So it's like it got shallower and shallower. And I didn't, in the first session, that conscious connected breathing session, when my facilitator told me breathe deep, I was breathing as deep as I can, but he was telling me it's not enough because I wasn't breathing deep enough. I wasn't able to. So dysfunctional breathing habits are just like that. If you have a dysfunctional breathing habit, because you've been breathing that way your whole life, maybe you're breathing too fast, faster than other people, maybe slower than other people, maybe too much in the diaphragm, maybe too little in the diaphragm, maybe like me shallow, or maybe too deep. Those breathing habits shape our reality, shape our thoughts, and shape who we are. That can also be called personas and fake identities, which me, like hiding myself, that kind of like became a personality of me over the years. And when you crack that open, everything starts shifting. So that's the exact reason why I started breathwork, because I realized that that was one of the first and most powerful ways I can help myself and I can help humanity to crack open. And once you crack open and once you connect deeper with yourself and essence, sometimes in my trainings, I tell my students, when the voice of your inner self is louder than the outside noise, no one can stop you. So it's like, I think the idea isn't about concentrating on the outer voice and the conditioning, because I'm someone who lived in the highest level of conditioning there is, the Middle East and, still Turkey. It's a lot of conditioning. And because for whole my life, by the way, the voice of my inner self, which I can say my intuitive voice, was louder than the noise of the outside, I was able to hear that. So I think the goal of people who want to master life and really deeply connect with themselves spiritually should be focusing on increasing your intuition, focusing on increasing your inspiration, focusing on connecting deeper to your purpose and what inspires you, so that that voice of inspiration and purpose becomes so loud that it just, you just hear that, and the outside noise is just noise.
Right.
So I don't think, especially in the first years when I became a teacher, everything moved fast, and with that session being that clear on my mission, I was a breathwork and meditation teacher on stage, teaching to hundreds of people.
Wow.
in the next couple of months. Everything moved so fast. Everything started happening very fast. And because I was the first ever breathwork and meditation teacher in Turkey at that time, people started getting interested, and I don't know how it happened, but like news channels started getting interested. I was in national news, and people would come and interview me, and it was kind of like this whole breathwork and meditation thing, because it was so new and people had no idea. People were like, wow, what it is? What is she talking about? That cracking that wall open, it was kind of like, people just saw that light. And I remember some people, because I would join some festivals and expos at that time. This is like 23, 24 years ago. I remember people coming up to me and saying, wow, you're such a light. I want that.
Wow. Just like
And
that.
I was like, wow. I think the whole shift happened because I was so much hiding that for many years. It's kind of like this potential energy building. And then when that wall
Just
cracked
exploded.
open, it was like,
Right. Everybody could see it. Wow.
And that's kind of like the first level. So I teach my students right now the importance of first connecting with yourself and focusing on building that connection with yourself, that purpose, and that like taking time to hear that inner voice and taking time to connect with your intuition with daily practice, which is around basically meditation. I think all spiritual practices are around meditation, which is just basically staying by yourself, just staying with yourself, spending time with yourself, withdrawing from the five senses, withdrawing your attention from the physical world and diving deep into the spiritual realm. The more time you spend, the louder your real voice gets. And then at one point, it just dissolves the outer noise.
And can you tell us a little bit about your app, Breath Hub, and how it started, what it does?
Sure. Yeah. So because breathwork is kind of like my first baby, because I started with that. Then I started learning and mastering other methods like mind transformation and mind mastery, and also classic Vedic meditation. I'm teaching different tools and different principles like right now, because I realized there are 5 main principles of self-mastery. The reason why I wanted to found Breath Hub is because it's my first baby, and because of my own journey, I am certain that if someone is taking their first step to spirituality, if you want to connect with your soul, your essence, breathing, first understanding breathing and first connecting with your breathing is the most powerful and most effective tool. Because in the 21st century, we're so disconnected, like most people, the masses are so disconnected from themselves, their essence and their core, their spirituality, soul. Meditation are, I think, less effective because we need stronger tools. I think that's why breathwork is growing so fast, because we need a stronger tool. And our breath is the bridge between the physical body and our spirit. So it's like once you build that bridge, once you build that, bridge with where I found conscious connected breathing or, different breathing techniques, after a while that happens, people do start connecting with their essence without even knowing what it is. So it's like, I was thinking as a self-mastery teacher, a breathing scientist as well, like what would be the one tool people can use easily, effectively, get result instantly, and that's breathing. Like you can practice meditation for 20 minutes and not get the results you get from a 3-minute breathwork session. You just do breathwork, align do, for example, coherent breathing. You practice conscious connected breathing, balance the inhale and exhale, just count to 4 or 5 when you inhale and count to 4 or 5 when you exhale. Balance the inhale and exhale. It balances the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system in seconds. It balances your overall chemistry in seconds. Wow. And you're in Zen in 3 minutes. So I was like, what would be the one thing I can teach to masses? Because as a self-mastery teacher, I'm not teaching to masses. I have a community who are dedicated to self-mastery, and my shortest educational package is 1 year. Usually students stay 4 years, 5 years, a lifetime. Like my students are on a lifetime journey with me because self-mastery is a lifetime journey. So it's so people who are truly, truly dedicated to self-mastery, mastering their lives, building that spiritual connection, need a teacher like me who is fully dedicated to them, and who can keep them on track. But for people, and I'm clear that, with my purpose and my mission, I'm not a teacher for the masses. Like I don't want to be a teacher of millions, but just a couple of thousands is, great for me with that community. And with that, I was questioning, like, what can I do for the masses? Like, what can I offer to the masses? And it was like a breathwork app, and we built the app.
And so let's say I download the app today, I want to take my first breathwork session. What are some of the questions that you ask or that you want to understand about the individual before giving them a plan or customizing it?
So because breathing is behavioral, it's a behavior. If you have a dysfunctional breathing habit, you start experiencing over 200 well-known symptoms of dysfunctional breathing habits, which is in all respiratory science books today. Anxiety, panic attack, ADD, ADHD, migraine, other attention deficit problems, like tingling, learning disorders, some cardiovascular problems. So what we did is, because we know the symptoms of dysfunctional breathing habits, and we know which symptoms are the result of what kind of breathing habits, we prepared basic questions. We lead our users to answer. And once you answer those questions, we know your breathing habits. We know exactly what you're doing with your breathing, whether you're using the diaphragm too much, too little, whether you're over breathing or you have a shallow breathing habit, whether you're breathing too much in the chest or not. So after those questions, according to the answers you gave, telling us about your symptoms, the app creates, and that's the algorithm we created, the app creates a unique journey, a customized journey for you, where you can practice changing your own breathing habit. Like if I had the app 25 years ago when I first had my breathwork session, if I answered the symptoms over there, the app would lead me into overbreathing sessions, because the app would know that I'm a shallow breather. So by asking questions on your psychology and symptoms, we know how you're breathing, and then the app creates a customized journey. And we're getting amazing results. Like we've been hearing from people, there are people who healed migraine.
Wow.
There are people who healed fully anxiety by using the app between 3 to 10 minutes a day. Yeah, that's amazing. That's very fulfilling for me.
Beautiful. And it's available in every country throughout the world?
Yeah, it is. It's in English and Turkish. Okay. That's it. But it's available everywhere, yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being on the show. I'm sure we'll have you on again soon. It was very insightful for me on a personal level. I'm going to download your app as soon as I'm off this call, and I look forward to the journey. So thank you so much for being on.
Thank you too.
Amazing.